Good evening, everyone. A warm welcome to you all. We are delighted to have you among us. On behalf of IEEE Student Branch of Rajaratnam University of Sri Lanka, we organized a webinar on Flutter and mobile development. First of all, we kindly request all of to mute your microphones. It will give much convenience for this session. And if you have any questions, you can post them in chat box. It's the time for welcome our guest speaker, student branch counselor, lecturers, and participants, and set the context for this session. I warmly welcome Ms. Shaknas to address the welcome speech.
Good evening. Thank you for being here this evening today. Behalf of IEEE Student Branch of Rajaratnam University of Sri Lanka, we plan to conduct a webinar called Flutter and Mobile Development, which comes under Tech Talk Rajaratnam. IEEE Student Branch of Rajaratnam University of Sri Lanka has initiated a project called Tech Talk Rajaratnam. It is a monthly tech session conducted by IEEE Student Branch of Rajaratnam University of Sri Lanka. We find speakers and encourage the students who are interested in any particular IT field. Flutter and mobile development are on everyone's lips, but hardly anyone understands what it exactly is. Nevertheless, the expectations are high. So first of all, let's become clear about Flutter and mobile development so we can understand this technology's potential for the industry. We are pleased to welcome Mr. Radhika Dilankar, a very special guest. Mr. Radhika Dilankar is a software engineer at Infra Technologies Private Limited and also a MERN tech developer, a photographer, a YouTuber, and a passionate teacher. And today he will be sharing with us about Flutter and mobile development. With that, I ask that you give your full attention to Mr. Radhika Dilankar and help me in welcoming him to the webinar. And also, we warmly welcome Mr. VBPN Herath. Thank you.
Thank you, Shaknas. I am honored to invite our speaker, Mr. Radhika Dilankar, software engineer at Instra Technologies Private Limited, to continue this session. Aya, it's the time for you.
Okay, thank you, Nandi, and thank you everyone for being here. And good evening, everyone. It's I'm so excited about this session, and let's go. I think you all can see my screen.
Yeah, we can see.
Okay. Flutter and mobile development. So I would like to name this as Absolute Beginner's Guide. Something this mainly focus on the absolute beginners to enter the journey, and I hope there may be some experienced developers and experts also there, so they also can help the beginners in the questions. And let's move. First of all, I would like to tell about what is mobile development and how we can develop mobile application. At first, we should know what the mobile app is. The mobile app is a software that runs on a mobile device. There are many important things we need to consider when we are developing mobile application. The main thing is the user interface, because the mobile devices are very small rather than the desktop or computer or other devices. So we need to have a clear and great UI to interact the users. In the left hand side, you can see the wrong one. if you can find the wrong, what's the wrong in that is the close button is too small. That user can't tap on that. But in computer, we can click, but in mobile devices, it's not a good idea to make the icon that much of small. The right one, the wrong user interface. If you can see, the old fonts are in same color, same size. Then user can't understand what's the very important thing. But the right one, you can see the new song and all are in different font sizes and different colors. Then user can understand what's going on. And the performance optimization. That means the mobile device is a small device that is having a limited number of memory and the performance. All are limited. We can't extend those performance or those things. So we need to consider, when we are developing a mobile app, we need to consider about the device compatibility. Device compatibility means when we are developing an app, we should think that will this app work on the expected devices. Think if you are developing an app that need so many performance, but most of the users may not have that much of devices which is having a huge performance. So we need to consider about that. The memory consumption is the another one. Memory consumption means mobile devices are having limited amount of memory. That can't be extended, but in a laptop or PC we can extend our memory chips, but in mobile devices we can't do that. So we should make our app to use very less memory as possible. That is also important case. Battery consumption, that's also very important. If your mobile app taking too much of battery, that means when you are running the app, if your device battery get drained so fast, the users will not use that app. And network performance, that's the another important thing. The mobile devices are made to bring when we are traveling. The signal strength may change. That means we may face the signal strength like 3G or maybe less. Our app should work in that manner also. That's the another case. If your app only works for 4G, that's not a good app. Yeah, is that all? Actually, we were talking about some technical stuff. That means what are the technical things we need to consider when we are making an app. But there are more things. How to develop a world-class mobile app. That means if you have a great idea to develop a world-class mobile application for your business, or if you are going to make a business with the mobile app, what are the things you need to consider? What, why, when, and how? Those are the main questions you will get. I'm going to answer those questions. The first thing, you need to do a research. Research means custom demand and trends. You need to find what are the trends and what's the demand of the app that you are going to build. And the next thing, you need to find out the similar apps. What are the similar apps already in Play Store, on App Store, or maybe another store. So you need to check all those things to get an idea, because it is said that learning from the other mistakes than learning after making mistakes. Because if you are doing a mistake, your competitor may take an advantage of that and make another app. It will be a competition to you. So if you can do the same thing, you can do a research, then find the pain point of the customers that already using those kind of apps. Then you can make a best solution for that. Then you can publish those apps to the App Store and Play Store. Then it will be a great app for the users, because you are addressing the pain points. That's the case. That's the value of that's the one value of the research. Next, you need to understand the target audience. Target audience means when you are creating an app, you need to understand that who are the people that going to use the app. That may be a children's or parents or teenagers or anything. Anything is possible, but you need to clearly understand who are the audience, who are going to use this app. If you meet the expectation of your users, definitely your app is going to get popular and it will help you to generate more revenue on that. That's the value of identifying the target audience. You need to think about how your app will add a value to those people. That's the case. Next step, you have to choose the correct platform. After the research and after identifying the target audience, you know who are the audience that your app will use. Assume that your app is going to use by the iPhone users. Then there is no need to make an app for Android users, because if you are clearly identifying that your audience is only focusing on iOS users, then building an Android app may work. But if you know exactly the audience is only iOS users, then no need to make an Android app. The other one also same. If your audience is only using Android devices, then it's better to create an Android application. That's the case. And there are so many types of application we can create: native apps, hybrid apps, PWA, or cross-platform app. There are many things you can find in the internet. What are those things? I'm not going to talk much about those things, because today's session is only focusing on the Flutter is related to the cross-platform app. We will talk about more in the next slides. The plan of action is the another important thing. Before creating a mobile application, whatever the application, maybe desktop app, also we need to have a plan. But in mobile application, it's must. That's because we have to think everything. App design, app architecture, and also a project management is very important, because we can create an app like minimum viable product, something like that. That means a product, an app that can run. It's not doing all the things. Imagine that we are having an idea to make an app like Facebook. Then the minimum viable product is maybe it's showing some post. That's maybe a minimum viable. It's working and it's showing something, and users can download and use it. That's the minimum viable product. Releasing the minimum viable product to the beta testers, we can get an idea. We can get a feedback from them to improve the features. So those are called the milestone in project management. So we need to have a great project management and great app design and app architecture also we need to have. Those are the cases. Next, this is also very important. Know your budget. Because I know mobile app development, then I can build anything. That's not the case, because you can build anything, but you can't maintain it, or you can develop. You may be develop, but some cases you have to buy some servers or buy some services. These are not free. At that time, you need to know about your budget, how much money you can spend, how much investment you can put on this application. These are so important. And maintenance. You can release your first step with a free quota of any free services, but when the users are growing, those resources may not enough. Assume that you are taking a database, free database, for that can have 10 megabytes or something like that. When users are increasing, the 10 megabytes may be increased. At the time, you have to purchase. So you need to know your budget, that you can afford this. If you can't afford this, your app have to be terminated. In that case, you will be failed. Therefore, before we get into it, we need to do a research about the maintenance too and updating. When the features and devices and everything are getting updated, your app also need to be updated. So need to find a better way to update those things. The other thing is marketing. If you are creating a great app, but you are keeping it inside the home, no meaning. You have to market it for the correct audience or the identified target audience. You may have to spend some money for that, or you have to spend some time on that, or maybe something. But you need to have a better marketing plan before creating the app. Smooth and efficient. This is also very important. Data efficiency. Data efficiency is a great problem, because if your app is consuming more mobile data, or maybe Wi-Fi or whatever it is, if your mobile app is consuming more data, the users will obviously uninstall that app, because they don't like to pay for the unnecessary data usage. Battery usage is also same. The next one, smooth loading. That means your app is getting lagged for a long time, or in each and every time it's getting lagged, the users will obviously uninstall that app. So therefore, smooth loading is must. And the user friendliness. User friendliness means the most of the time we are trying to make some unique apps, but the uniqueness may affect the user experience. That means if you are putting a close button like a submit button, the user may think this is submit button, but when it clicks, it closes. So that's a bad user experience. The users will not use those apps, because users are not using the app to be conflict. They are using the app to make their life easier, not to make their life so conflict that what this button does, what this button does. They don't like to think those kind of things. So your app should be user friendly and user experience. Your app shouldn't break the user experience. Those are the cases. The next one, user experience, I have talked about. Your product should be valuable. That means your product should not be just a product, just an app. That's the meaningless. Your app should be a valuable one and should be easy to use. And the too much valuable thing is it should be effective to the target audience. That means when your app is using the target audience, they should be satisfied with it. That means make something valuable. That's the case. And functionality and the contents are delivered to your app must be in line with the target audience. Otherwise, app will fail. Fail means your expected revenue couldn't be generated. And maintain after development. This is also too much important, because you can build an app, you can distribute to app stores or Play Store. Most of the people think, oh, we are done, we are success, that's finished. Not the case. We have to maintain after the deployment. There may be some problems, something like the mobile companies are introducing new types of devices, something the flip app, the flippable phone. At that time our app should be work perfect in those kind of app devices too. At that time we have to think what are the changes we should do in order to work on those kind of devices. And new operating system may be introduced. At the time also we have to make our app work on that operating system. And new features, AR, VR, or there may be so many new features. We have to adapt with those things to our app. It's also a part of maintaining. And not only new devices, new operating system, new features, there may be new restrictions too. If there is anyone who develop an iOS app or iOS developer, you may have faced these kind of problems so many times. They are restricting many things. So we have to adapt those scenarios. We have to overcome those things. It's also under the maintain after development. And I have talked about making an app, that an idea. If you have an idea to make an app, those are the steps you should follow. But if you are a developer, you are developing custom softwares, and then your client will say what to do. Then you have to do that thing. You don't need to do the research and all of these things, but performance testing and all those testing you have to do yourself in order to make your app perform great. And if the client is only having an idea, in that case, some people come and say, I have this kind of idea, could you please make an app for this idea? At that time, we have to follow all those steps to verify that idea is possible to success. Otherwise, no meaning to make an app. This is for mobile development, the process. And if you are going to talk about some tools and technologies, in mobile development, we are having this categorization, the native apps. Native apps mean it's native to the OS. That means if we are making iOS app, we can use Swift or Objective-C. We can code using Xcode. If we are making an app for Android, we can use Kotlin or Java using Android Studio. Those are the native. And hybrid app mean we are making an web view and load those, making a web view and making a web app, load those web app into web view and be released. That's the hybrid. And progressive web apps mean we are making an web app. Progressive mean we are adding some extra features like push notification. And so using Service Worker, we can add push notification and offline support. This actually a web app behave like a mobile app. And our topic is under the cross-platform. If we talk about cross-platform, we are finding we can find two things: React Native and Flutter. And I'm not going to talk much about the other things. Let's talk about the cross-platform. Cross-platform, those are the features of cross-platform development. Written in one language, but built into two, maybe more. But under the mobile app development, we can say a native iOS and native Android. Those are the cases. And fast development and performance optimized development, that mean the final build will be performance optimized build. And native look and feel, even you are creating an app with another language, not the native language, but the final app will look and feel like a native app. And it's those are open source libraries. Almost all the libraries are open source and free. And large capability of UI customization. We can customize, we can make whatever we need. And reusable codes, we can reuse the Android code to make an iOS. But not the case. We are writing in one code. We can use it for Android and we can use it for iOS. That's the case. Cross-platform development, advantages and disadvantages. We can say it's cost-effective, means we code in one language, but we can create two apps, Android and iOS at the same time. Then the cost is only for one development, but we can have two apps. So cost-effective. Reusable code mean we can use the same code base to make Android app and iOS app. And consistency between platforms, that mean if we make an app in the cross-platform type, Android app will look and feel like Android, iOS app will look and feel like iOS. That's the consistency. And the disadvantages, native one will be slightly faster. That's the case because native languages are made to run on their native devices. At that case, that will be a bit faster than those kind of languages. And long wait time for new features. That means assume that iOS, they are releasing a new feature for their Swift or Objective-C languages, but since these are open source and package based third-party packages, so we have to wait until someone create those features to use with those packages. That's the long wait time. We don't know how much time it takes to create for them in order to available in Flutter or React Native. That's the case. Third-party dependencies. This is a plus point and also a minus point, because these are third-party libraries. No one pay for that. Those are free. Then anyone can stop. Assume that I am creating a third-party library for doing something. Then I feel, oh, that's no need. Then I can stop that. Then when the OS get updated and everything change, if I didn't make it, the people, the other developers couldn't use that. So that may be a problem, but the plus point is you can find a package, you can find multiple packages doing the same thing. Then you can switch between the packages and make your work done. That's a big plus point, but the minus point also there. So that is about mobile development and mobile application and the cross-platform development. Then dive into the Flutter. Flutter is open source UI development kit, blah blah blah, and this is used to develop application for Android and iOS. This is what we are going to talk. Why Flutter or the other cross-platform apps, you may ask. Then the competitor is React Native. If you know about, this is bit of a React Native, and this is about Flutter. React Native from Facebook, React from Facebook, then React Native is also, and Flutter from Google, React 2015, 18. Those are the things you can compare. The important things we can say like that, we can talk many things about those competitor or those comparison. React Native is a software framework, but Flutter is software development kit. They are having more features than that. And the main valuable thing is React Native uses a JavaScript bridge, but Flutter compiled to native code. We will talk more in later. Those are the things why we should use Flutter over the React Native. Okay, let's talk what goes under the hood when you create a Flutter app. This is the thing that Flutter gives you a UI toolkit to build beautiful native app from a single code base. You can build a beautiful app using those UI toolkit. And you don't need to worry about the quality, speed, or the performance. All those things are optimized with Flutter. In here, okay, in the left hand side, you can see this is your app. We are going to check how these features came to Flutter. This is your app written in Flutter, and there are something called widgets. Don't think about that, but there is something called widgets, and this is the separation between platform and your app. What the Flutter does is Flutter requests a canvas and render the widgets on it or draw the widgets on it. That means Flutter render the app itself rather than letting the platform to do so. That means your app is fast because your app itself rendering, not letting the platform to do so. That's the case. And there is no bridge or context switching or anything between your app and the platform. These are the other ways. You can, this is your app written in some language, and there is a web view, and this is the platform. Web view is also in the platform. The rendering part is happening here. then it's two-step to the flat form. In this case, you are having a bridge in your app, you are having a bridge, and using that bridge, you are calling to the flat form. This is also two-step, but in here, one step, single step, it's take canvas and render the widgets on the platform. We will explain more in later, but this is the main case that Flutter is super fast rather than the other. Then you could think, wow, Flutter is great programming language, but this is not the case. You can say, wow, Flutter is great. That's the case. Because Flutter is not a language, but the Dart is. And it uses C++ as a rendering engine for Flutter. But you don't need to worry about that. If you don't know C++, that's no need. You only need to understand the Dart to write the code in Flutter. Dart is a programming language. It's actually a special language that can do just-in-time compilation. We can call it as jittered. It can be jittered, and also ahead time of compilation. That means we can do a clean build later for the deployment. If we talk about the jittered or jitting, that's enabled for fast development. That means if you ever heard about the hot reload, this feature is coming from the jittered or jitting, just-in-time compilation. Because of that, we are having the hot reload. That means when you are change some code, the effect you can see within a half of a second or in super fast. That's the case. And when you're ready to release your app, it will do the ahead time of compilation and make a optimized build for your product or for your app. That's the case. In here, you can get the best of the both worlds. You can do head time of compilation and also jittered or just-in-time compilation. That's the great feature of the Dart. If we talk more about Dart, it can compile like Java. Also, it's like scripting language like JavaScript at the same time. It's some features of Dart. And also, it can translate JavaScript to use a web frontend. That means you can make web application also using Dart. At that time, Dart code transpile to JavaScript in order to work on browsers. The other thing is Dart can run on anything: Android, iOS, macOS, Windows, Linux, also Chrome, not Chrome, in web. That's the case. Dart can run on anything. Next golden question is how to learn Dart. You can see here Dart is an object-oriented, class-based, garbage-collected language with C-style syntax. Oh, I don't know C. Then how we can learn Dart? No, don't think like that. If you know any object-oriented programming language, I think you all know Java. Or if you don't know Java, there's nothing to worry about that. If you know the basic programming concept like loops, logic, if, clause, all those things, and learn the double OP concept, then you can learn Dart. And also Dart is having their own documentation. It's great documentation. You can go using the dart.dev, using the below link. You can learn Dart separately from Flutter. In Flutter, everything on the screen is called a widget. this is the default app that Dart create or the Flutter create for you. In here, all are the widgets. We can say this as a widget tree. There are so many widgets. We can define a widget uh, structural element like button. It says it has and some it has some structure, buttons, menus, something like that. Also, a stylish element like font color, font size, those are the things. And also, we can use some uh, something like layout aspects like padding, margin, all other things. Those are also widgets. In Flutter, everything is a widget. We will see and talk more later about those things. Flutter also comes with a rich collection of pre-made widgets. That means you don't need to create all the widgets from the scratch. You can use those widgets. If you are making an Android app, you can use material type styles or widgets. Those are from material widgets. And if you are developing an app for the iOS, you can use Cupertino widgets. Those are under the widgets class. These are the example. This is for the Android type. You can see you may familiar with those Android types and also should be familiar with those iOS types. We are having those two pre-made classes that is having so many pre-built widgets for you to make your development super fast. Actually, if you are in my case, actually I'm not a good UI designer, but for me Flutter is great because it's very easy to make UIs with Flutter rather than doing in other cases like React Native or in the case of web. Flutter is super easy. That's from my experience. And let's see the code. If we see the code, this is the default app or the boilerplate you are getting when you create a new app. You can see here in line 11, we are saying that material app. If something is called material, that is mostly on Android side because material is for Android. If you are using something from this package material.dart, it's mostly on the Android side. In Flutter, if you run this app on an iPhone, what do you think? The output will looks like an iOS or Android. Obviously, if you run this app on iPhone or Android or whatever it is, the user interface looks like an Android. That means it uses the material style or material app or the components of material library. That's the case. The reason behind this is Flutter is requesting a canvas from the native platform and draw on it. That's the case. It draws whatever the things we write on the canvas rather than requesting elements from the platform. The other languages are doing that thing. If we create a button, other languages are doing what they're doing is they are requesting the platform. They are asking platform, hey, I need a button. Give me a button. Then the platform give a button. Then it will show. That's the case. But in Flutter request a canvas from the platform. Platform they request, hey, give me a canvas. I will do all the things, and they draw each and everything, every pixel on screen. In that case, if we create an app using material, even it's running on an iOS, Flutter doesn't know about the platform, it's draw what we told that to draw. That's the case. And the other thing is Flutter is really fast that it can render 60 frames per second. That means you can do too much powerful animations in Flutter. 60 frames per second, if you are familiar with video editing or something like that, or photography, videography, you know what it means. 60 frames per second mean it's really fast. You can do a great animation like videos in Flutter. But if you need the iOS look and feel, that means if you need to make an app for iOS that really look and feel is iOS, in that case, you have to use the Cupertino app. This is for iOS. Then you can import this like this. If you import this library and use the elements of that library, you can see here also I'm using Cupertino colors. The theme also in that package. At that time, the app, the look and feel of this app is iOS. In the other hand, if we run this app on an iPhone, it's obviously look like iPhone app or iOS app. But if we run on Android also, it's now not changing to the view of Android. It seems like an iOS app. We can do vice versa. That's the case. These are the pros that Flutter owns every pixel on the screen. We can create any complex UI because it requests an canvas and draw. Then we can draw anything. We can create any type of complex UIs using Flutter because Flutter is on every pixel on the screen. It's a good thing. And since it's not bounded by the restriction of the platform, we can place iOS app. That means iOS type app on Android devices. In the other hand, we can make an install Android type app on iPhone. This is the good thing that we can do using since the Flutter is owning the every pixel on the screen. But the bad thing is also same, platform inconsistency. If we build an app using material things, the look and feel of that app is like Android. The problem is most of the Android iOS users doesn't like the way that Android does. That is not the main case, but just imagine that you are using an iPhone, then you are installing a new app. It's the look and feel is Android. It's so hard to understand what's going on. In that case, you obviously uninstall that app because it's not an Android app. It's not an iOS app. The other side also same. If you are installing an app on Android device, its look and feel is iOS. That means the buttons are different, the behaviors are different. At the case you feel unfamiliar with that app, so you will also uninstall that app. So the platform inconsistency is happening at this time. Then you may think about that. I earlier said that this is platform consistency, and now I am telling platform inconsistency. We are having a solution for that. Yeah. What if you need to have an adaptive look? That means you are writing one code, your app should looks like an Android on Android phone and iOS like an iPhone. At that time, you can use Flutter platform widgets. That is, a package you can use to create adaptive apps. So you can use this package, Flutter platform widgets dot. This package you can use, and if you can see the mark side, this is I am creating here the platform scaffold and platform app bar and those kind of things. Okay, fine. If you can see the marked area, this area is common for Android and iOS because it's use platform app bar, the platform icon button, those are the things. But if you need more specific, that means if you need to specify the color or any of the things for the iOS side, you can use the Cappuccino. In Cappuccino navigation bar data, we can provide the data we need to show in Android iOS devices. Here I am specifying the color, and also in here we can define the material one, like material app data. It will show in the Android one. I will show some examples later. At that time, you should understand what we can do in Flutter. Then the main question, how to start coding with Flutter, or how to start working with Flutter, or how to start Flutter. That's the simple question. Right. First of all, we need to install Flutter. If you are using Windows or Mac or Linux or Chrome OS, you can install Flutter. If you go to that link, flutter.dev docs.getstarted/install, you can find a great you can find installation links, installation packages, or the SDK, actually XDK. You can download the relevant SDK for your device, and you can start coding. Flutter on Windows. I hope that most of you are using Windows. Maybe you are using a Mac or using Ubuntu, or maybe using Chrome OS. The process is same. If you are using Windows, this link, you can go to this link and you can install Flutter SDK. It gives you a great step guide, and the notice also there, what you should do, what you shouldn't do also there. So you can follow those steps and you can install Flutter at first. And second, you need to install the Android Studio in order to have a simulator, actually an emulator, to test your app. That means you can run your apps on the emulator. And also it will take care of the platform dependencies. It will automatically install and do all the relevant needful things. We don't need to worry about those things. And the next, you need to set up your Android emulator, because installing Android Studio won't make an emulator for you. You have to make an emulator for yourself by downloading and configuring those things. That guide also there in this link. You can follow those links from top to bottom. Then everything will be configured by you. There is no any problems for that installation. So you can follow that. This is the first step. And where you can write the codes, that's the next problem. You can use Android Studio. Since you are installing Android Studio, it has its own code editor with so many plugins and extensions, support so many plugins and extensions. You can use that. And also you can use Visual Studio Code. I prefer using Visual Studio Code because if you have ever used Android Studio, you know that how much of memory it uses. Since we don't need to use Android Studio, we can use just small text editor like Visual Studio Code. If your computer or if your device is having too much of RAM, you can use Android Studio. That's not a problem. And another valuable things to say that this is Visual Studio Code, not the Visual Studio. Don't so many people are thinking that this is Visual Studio. This is not the case. This is Visual Studio Code. It's just a text editor, but so powerful and lightweight. That's the case. And after installing Visual Studio Code, I hope you are using Visual Studio Code. If not, no problem. You have to install this plugin, Flutter. Actually, this extension, you have to use the next extension called Dart. In Android Studio also, you can install those extensions. You can install those extensions. It's very helpful for you to debug and the development and snips also they are giving, and error finding. There are so many helps included in those packages. You should install this in order to code. That's the case. And then how to create a Flutter app? Yeah, in Visual Studio Code, you can go to View, Command Palette, or just click Control Shift P. Then it will pop up like the Flutter new application project. Then click Enter. You can specify a location. Don't specify a location inside some program file or something like that, because it needs some permission to create some files. So it's better to use a device C, just C a folder like Flutter projects or something else, or other than if you are having any other devices like D, E, or there are some partitions in your devices, you can use those partitions. And enter project name. You can use a name like this. Then click enter, will create an app for you. So Flutter file system, this is some valuable thing. Flutter file system, if you talk about this system here, the first section, Dart tools, IDEA, Android, and iOS. You don't need to touch any of these because there is nothing to change here by you, and don't delete those. The Dart tool is created by Dart for their configurations, and IDEA is created by the editor for their configurations or something like that. An Android folder is creating an Android app. You can open this using Android Studio in order to publish or test, or you can do anything by opening this using Android Studio. The iOS side, if you are using Windows, you can't do the things using this folder, but if you are having a Mac, you can open this using Xcode and it will behave like a native app. You can do any of the things in this folder. But when we are coding in Flutter, there is no need to do any of the changes on those files. The library file, this is lib or library. There is a file called main.dart. Inside that, all the codes we are writing inside this folder, we can create folders inside it, we can create files, or we can do anything. All the things we are doing inside this lib folder. We will talk about that later. And the other things, test, git ignore, metadata packages, default Flutter, app.yaml, and publics.lock. Those are the files. You don't need to touch that. Test is for test cases. You can write test cases for inside this folder. And git ignore is, if you know about Git, it's a version control. You can define what are the files should not be uploaded to the Git using this file. Metadata is some data about your application, and packages are the packages that you are using, the links and all the things inside there. You don't need to do anything with that. Default Flutter app.yml, some links for your application. Pubspec.lock is created by pubspec.yaml file. You don't need to do anything with that file also. But we have to talk about the pubspec.yaml file, something like a configuration for our project. Yeah, this is the pubspec.yaml file. There are so many things, but I'm going to talk the valuable things. Dependencies. This is the main valuable thing is this is a text file and written with indentation. Indentation means it's having some spaces before the text. You can see like that. I am showing it here. Dependencies. The Flutter is having with an indentation. SDK also having with two indentation, two dependencies, one to Flutter. If you you have to, if you are adding any of the new packages or anything, you have to consider those indentation and follow those things in order to work. This is the must. And also here dependencies, we are having dependencies. If we are adding any new dependencies, here Cupertino icons is another dependency we have added in the same line of Flutter. If we are adding new dependencies like platform, platform widgets, we can add after that. With the version, it will be installed, and there is another dependencies called div dependencies. That mean they are the dependencies that we can use in development, but those dependencies will not be published when we are publishing our app. Most of the dependencies we will be using will be added to the dependencies, not the div dependencies. That's the case. And here you can see something like assets, image, .blur.jpg, image, hum.jpg, something like that. The hashes before these codes are called comments. If you want to use this, you can remove those hashes, then it will be work. These are the comments. If you want to use some assets, that mean images, uh, mainly we are using images. If we want to use images or something like that, we can use this section to import those things to our app. At this time, you can see we are creating an images folder. Inside the images folder, we are having those two images. Rather than importing one by one those images, we can just say assets images. That means we are creating an folder called images and put all the images inside that, and we are giving a slash. We are giving a reference like slash to this. At that time, we can use those images inside our app. That's the explanation of pubspec.yaml. Mostly you will be doing adding some dependencies under the underline 30, and you can add some images or assets for your app on this. This is the folder structure that you are adding the image file. That means the same your lib folder, actually the root folder, this image folder is inside the root folder. You can see that. Next, we should talk about the lib.main.dart. But before that, we have to talk about the widget types. Before that, if you are having some questions regarding all the earliest part, you can ask. And I can give some 5 minutes like that to make your answer questions.
Guys, if you have any doubts, you can unmute your mic and ask. Else, you can post them in chat box.
Okay, since you are not having any problems, that maybe you could understand everything or you didn't understand anything. That's fine. Let's move to the next part. Types of widgets in Flutter. I think you all can hear me. Uh,
Yeah, we can hear you.
yeah, okay. Types of widgets in Flutter. As I said earlier, everything in Flutter is a widget. Let's see what the widget is and what are the types of the widgets and those things. We can see the first one is stateful widgets. The other one is stateless widget. This is something called stateful widget. That means if a widget can change when a user interact with it, it's called stateful widget. In the other side, if something is never changed over the time, it's called stateless widget. We can say an example for stateful widget is radio buttons, checkboxes, sliders, input boxes, input fields. Those are the things we can say as an example for stateful widgets. And the stateless widgets, we can say like text icons. Those are the things we can say like stateless widgets. And we will talk more in this session later about those kind of widgets. These are the main types of widgets in Flutter. Okay, the next problem, when to use stateless widget. In this example, this is the coding part and this is the output of this. You can see I'm having a material app here. That means this is an Android type app and there's a title called Welcome to Flutter. You can see the title here. And the home is scaffold. Scaffold is an area which is having a app bar and a body. This is the body. This is the app bar. This is called scaffold. Inside this scaffold, we are having an app bar. It's type of app bar. The title is Welcome to Flutter. And the body, as a body, having the center. This is also a widget. And that widget is having a child, a single child. It's called a text. And inside that text, we are having that's it. As you can see here, there is nothing interactive. All other texts, app bar and scaffold, those are the things. There is no anything interactive. At that time, it is no need to use stateful widget. That means we don't have any interactive things. So at that time, we can use stateless widget for statical things. That means we can say this page like static page. There is no anything to change over time. So for that purpose, we can use stateless widget. Let's talk about what the state is. This is some definition. The state is information that can be read synchronously when the widget is built and might change during the lifetime of the widget. That means actually state is an example. Sorry, state is an metadata actually. Let's see about this example. In here, there's a button. It's a plus button. And when user click on that button, the number here will be increased. At that time, we can say this is an stateful widget that is having a state that changes over the life cycle of the widget. That means when user click on that button, the state is changed and the number is changed. You can see the changes. In here, we are having a variable called underscore counter. If I say something about this code, we are having a floating action button. Floating action button is this button, and on pressed, we are having a method increment counter. What increment counter does is it is doing a counter plus plus. That means it's adding 1 to the counter when user clicks. At that time, the counter variable is showing in the line number 53 counter with the we are having two texts here. You have pushed the button this many times is the first text. The second text we are having the counter. So when you press the button, it increments the counter and shows in the shows to the user. What happened under the hood is we are having state. When user click on this button, state get changed with set state. When the state is changes, Flutter is having a tree called widget tree and the element tree. We are having two trees. We will talk about later. What Flutter does is Flutter is checking the differences between those trees, and if it find any differences, it rebuild the widget in order to display those changes. That is done by the state. State is responsible for all the changes to rebuild the widget. And you should think I would use the stateful widget for all. Actually, no. You don't need to use stateful widget for all because it takes more memory to keep all the states. Because stateful widget mean it has some state. State means some metadata about the widget. Those metadatas are keeping in memory. So if we are having so many stateful widgets, all the status are keeping memory. So as I said earlier, a mobile device is having a limited amount of memory. So if our app is taking too much of them, the device will be slow and the app will be slow, maybe crash. So we have to optimize the performance. So we don't need to use the stateful widgets each and every time. We have to use it wisely. And also when we are using bunch of stateful widgets nested within it, it will be so hard to build those methods, constructors, that will be difficult. So we need to use stateful widgets wisely. And the other one is keys in Flutter. There are a thing called key in Flutter. Before learning the keys in Flutter, we need to understand two things. As I said earlier, we will look this like a widget tree and element tree. This is that. The widget tree and element tree. Here you can see a widget tree and the element tree. Widgets are blueprints. That means they are configurations for elements. The element have references to those widgets that is responsible for comparing the widget differences. That means here we are having dog name widget and the element tree. That elements are the widgets that we can see, or we can see in real on a screen. Those are the elements. Elements are the widgets that made real and mounted on the screen. That's the case. And when the widget is called, that means we are calling the widget the elementary. Elementary asks from the widgets that do you have any things to show. At the time, the widget called its build method to build the element and it added to the element tree. Then we can see the element. Normally, an app is having those two trees, element tree and widget tree. If any of the things changes in element tree, it will affect to the if anything change on widget tree, it will affect to the element tree. That is what the interaction does. If user interact with the element widget tree, if it's changes, it checks the differences between element tree and widget tree. If anything changes, it will do the necessary changes and recreate the element and added it to the element tree. That's the case. Then why we need to use keys? This is the case. Think that we are having a reorderable list. That means we can order an element within the list. At that time, we need keys. That means you can see here widget tree and element tree. In widget tree, we are having some widgets, but there is a problem or there is a scenario in Flutter that it only check the type of the widget in the widget tree. If the type is same, it doesn't care about the thing inside it. That means in the left hand side you can see the reorderable list. All the list element are same in same in type. That means all these elements are tile elements, list tiles. So all are same in type. When we change the order, it will check the it will only check about the type, but type is same because every element is a tile. At that time, Flutter can't identify the change. So we have to use a key to differentiate that we are changing something inside the element. If we are having a key like that, Flutter is think that, oh, this is changed, so it swap the element. Because the changes we are doing is affecting to the widget tree. After comparing the differences between the widget tree and element tree, we can see the differences by recreating the element. So we have to use keys when we are having a list of same element. At that time, we have to use keys. I think you may confuse about those keys and things, but when we are coding, you may remember that, oh, we have to use something like that keys. We heard that. That's the thing what I need when you are using and when you are having a problem. When you are making a list and you are happening, at that time you should remember that, oh, we have to use keys. That's the case. And there are type of keys called value key, object key, unique key. There are many types of keys. You have to use it wisely, but when you feel you have to use it, that means your program is giving you an error or something like that. At that time, you will remember that we have to use some type of keys. So you will use it. That's the case. And let's talk about the main.dart. time to dive into the code. I will show some codes and we do some things with you. Okay. Just think that, as I said, you can go to the view and command palette, new Flutter project, application project. Then it will ask the location. I can choose the webinar here, and I am going to select the folder. Then I say Flutter application 1, it's fine. Then you can see it's creating the relevant folder for me. I will load my simulators and emulators. I think you can see, you can read my codes, isn't it?
Yes, Saya.
Okay. Okay, I'm bringing the simulator. Okay. Without doing any changes, let's see how this works. And Flutter 1. Yeah, here you can see the boilerplate or default app that Flutter is creating for you. You can see when we are pressing the button, it's increasing the number. And I said that this is the material. We are creating a material app, but even if we are checking or we are debugging on the iOS, it seems like an Android app. Let's see how it looks like on Android. It'll take a bit of time. Until now, I will explain some things. Here you can see avoid main and run app and it's calling my app. That means the app is starting to run from here, void main. When we call Flutter app to run, it will search for a main function and it start from there and run app. Inside the run app, what we are doing is we are calling the main app as a function. It's something like we are creating an object of the my app. That means in Java we are doing is my app, my app equal new my app, something like that. But here we are not doing that. We are just calling my app. But inside, what is happening is it's calling the my apps constructor to create the app for you. And if we check that my app is a class, extends stateless widget, as I said, and this is the class. What Flutter does is calling the main app and run app. Inside the run app, we are calling the my app. Sorry. And there's a build method. As I said earlier, when this widget is mounted, it will call the build method to build and add it to the element tree. The element tree is visible to the users. Inside the material app, since we are creating a material app, here we are having a home properties. In home property, we are given a widget called my home page. Here is the my home page. My home page is a stateful widget. You should be confusing that I said stateless widget can't change over the time, but in here if we click on the button, we can see it's changing. So how it is possible? You should think that. So our main widget or main class is stateless, but inside that stateless widget, we are having a stateful widget. We can use that. We can do like that. That means having a stateless widget doesn't mean we can't extend or we can't have any children inside. We can't have any stateful children inside it. That's not they mean. So you can see that stateful widget is there, and this is the state that is creating, and this is the counter value, and this is increment counter function, and this is set state, and here the floating action button, and here on press it calls the increment counter function. So that's the case. You can see this is the Android loop and iOS also the same loop. That's the case. So let's assume that you need to have some let's change something. If you need to have an iOS look and feel app, that means we have to use Cupertino app. Let's do like that. I'm using the material app to Cupertino app. So we can't use theme data here. If you hover over this, it says it's defined. That means we have to import those library. We can import using this. Then it imports this library. So we can't use theme data. It is having something different than that. Cupertino theme data. You can use like that. scheme data. So there is no any primary switch there. It is primary color. If you use colors.blue, it means colors from the material one. You can see Flutter SRC material colors. But if you want to use the exact Cupertino one, we can say Cupertino colors dot active, maybe active orange, like that. And also here we are using a scaffold. Scaffold is for Android actually. There is no the floating action button for iOS. So let's change that. We are changing that scaffold to Cupertino scaffold. Let's change to page scaffold. Then there is no app bar in Android. Sorry, iOS. iOS having navigation bar. We can't assign app bar for navigation bar. We can assign Cupertino navigation bar. In that navigation bar, there is no title. It is having a middle. There is no body. It's having a child. And there is no anything called floating action button. So I think we have done. Just check that out. This is the iOS one. We can reload. Yeah, it's so now you can see this is something like really iOS view, because normally iOS apps is having this color of navigation bar, and also the title is in middle and the color is something like that. And the other case, if we run this app on Android, that's the thing. If we use Cupertino app and the widgets, the apple looks like an iOS in both Android and iOS. But if we use the material one, the apple look like an Android one in both iOS and Android. But if you want to use the adaptive one, let me show you. Since it is time is fasting, I will show a simple app I have built earlier. Sorry. Here I am making a platform app. So first I will run on iPhone. Then I will run on iOS. Sorry, Android. Let's see what happens. Yeah, you can see we are having the same components. That means switch. We are having a switch. We can switch on and switch off. In iOS also we are having a switch on and switch off, and we are having a button. It's platform button. Here also we are having a button. We are having a text field. We can input some text here. Here also we are having a text field. We can add some text. You can see the elements are same, but it's adapted to the UI or the platform, because the switch of Android users is this. Android is using this type of switches, but iOS using this type of switches, and the buttons also iOS using this type of buttons, but Android default use this type of buttons. Input boxes are also same. This is the adaptive one. Let's dive into the code. Here the code. In the main.art file, I am creating a platform app, and I am I'm making a home as home page. If we move to the home page, we can see we are having a platform scaffold and platform app bar, and others are row, columns, and childs, and those things we are having. If we want more customization on our platforms, something like if we want the iOS one wants color to be orange or something. Yeah, iOS one should be orange, and the Android one, the background color of the Android one should look like colors green. So we should need green. Okay, let's check that out. This is the Android one. Already we are having blue. I have changed it to green. iOS one I have changed to orange. Yeah, iOS one changed to orange. Android one changed to green. So this is the power of what do you call the Flutter. So we can make Android, iOS, or adaptive apps. I think these are the examples. So since time is moving, let's move to the next section. We will talk about some monetization and those things. Yeah. Those are the things I showed you, how to create a new Flutter app, and stateless widgets and stateful widgets, and the material app, Cupertino app, and the platform app. those are the things I have explained. And if we move, yeah, that's the other question. Most of you may have a question like that. I'm running on Windows, then how I can experience the iOS look and feel. So there is a package called Device Preview. You can install that package in your Flutter app, inside your Flutter app. Then with using that package, when you run on when you test or when you run on emulator or simulator, there will be a frame called device preview frame. You can change the devices from iOS or Android, whatever it is, tablet or watches, so you can change to any of these things and you can see how it looks like. But you can't get the native features, but you can see how it looks like on Android or on iOS device. This is a cool and great feature for you. And the monetization. Yeah. Once you create an app, it should have a monetized value. So you can monetize your apps using these 3 steps. There may be more, but these are the main things or main ways that you can monetize. First one, you can directly sell your apps. If you are creating an unique or great app that isn't having in the world yet, or users can't escape, or users loving, or users need, or you are filling a gap of users suffering from, or at that time you can sell your app directly. That means there is no any free version. In order to install your app, they should pay. You can create that kind of apps. And the second one, you can create an app that is having in-app purchase. That means you are creating an app. You can't sell it because there are some apps we don't like to pay. But for some special features, you can say you can tell your audience or tell your users to pay for that. This is called in-app purchase. You can do it also. And the most popular one is ads. You can run ads on your mobile app to earn money. These are the main 3 points that you can earn from your apps. But these are not the only one. You may have thousands of ways to make money on apps. And if you are having a great idea that you can sell, it's great to sell. And the other case, if you are having a small idea and you can't sell, that you think, if you think that you people will not buy, but you can make an interest by giving the app for free, and for some special features you can charge. That's called in-app purchase. And if you think your app people will never pay a cent of dollar for your app, at that time you can use ads. Flutter is support both AdMob and Ad Manager ads. That means AdMob and Ad Manager both are ad services. AdMob for small to medium publishers, Ad Manager for large publishers, that is having more customization on ads you are publishing. Flutter is supporting both those platforms of the services. Flutter is supporting those both of those services. And Google Mobile Ad SDK for Flutter, there is a SDK you can use. It is having this kind of ads: overlay banner ads, inline ads, interstitial ads, rewards, and native. The first one is overlay ads. Overlay banners mean the ad is display over your content. It's something like pop-up. The inline banner mean the ad is displaying inline with your content. Interstitial mean ad is full screen, and like a full screen message, or we can say a model or full screen dialog, we have to close that. That's that. Rewarded ad. This is a great idea if you are creating an game or anywhere else you can use. That is, you are playing a video. You are telling the users to play the video to have a reward to use inside your app. That's a great idea. That a great thing you can do, or you can tell your audience to watch the ads. That's the another case. Native ads mean you can design the ad in order to show or in order to balance with your content. At that time, users will user experience will be high because users not what do you call actually users not disturbed with the ads. They feel they are going the same flow, and ad is also inside the flow. It's also a great things to do. So finally, I would like to thank you all and for contacting me also. And this is so fun for question. And thank you. Finally, if you want to find me, here is me.
Thank you, Iya. Guys, if you have any questions, you can ask now. It seems you don't have any doubts, so I consider it's a great privilege to invite Miss Vidhushana to propose vote of thanks.
Thank you, Madhuranta. Good evening to all. First of all, I would like to thank you all. You gave me an opportunity to speak on this webinar, and it's a matter of honor for me. On behalf of the IEEE student branch of Rajarati University of Sri Lanka, I would like to thank our speaker, Mr. Randika Divankar, who gave a great session on Flutter and mobile development in such a short time. I would like to express our sincere gratitude to our branch councillor, Mr. Virajudana Vikramaraji, and Mr. Nishanta Veerakam, the head of the department, Faculty of Applied Sciences, Department of Computing, who gave the best support for us. Thank you to all the SP members who volunteered to make the webinar happen successfully. Last but not least, I want to express my heartfelt gratitude to all the participants present today. I hope that this webinar helps you out to know about the Flutter and the mobile development, and meet you all on another webinar. Wear a mask and be safe. Thank you.
Thank you, Vidhushana. Again, thank you for your interest on this webinar. I hope that you all have got a couple of ideas regarding this session.